See what we can do with this. How y'all doing today? I first like to thank my wife for coming. She's the best part of my life. Glad she took the time to find that prince in the ugly duckling. So thank you for being here. I also want to begin from the class to thank Sandra and her crew for all that they've done for us. We always had a smile in the morning, coffee. And, you know, Sandra would always tell you the truth. You know, she'd always speak from the heart to you. As for the other instructors, I'd like to read a poem for you. It's called The Bridge Builder. An old man going along the highway came in the evening cold and gray to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a southern tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The southern stream had no fear for him. But he turned and was safe on the other side, and he built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you're wasting strength we're building here. Your journey will end at the ending day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed a chasm deep and wide. Why build you this bridge at evening tide? The builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend in the path I have come, he said. There followeth another me today, a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been naught to me, to that fair-haired youth, may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. So, good friend, I'm building this bridge for him. The poem that I read was to pay tribute to our instructors who actually reached back and built that bridge for us. They empowered us and charged us to do the same in the future. We all came here from different agencies with one unified goal, to learn to become better leaders. But what we gained out of this course was so much more. The first session, we all met something called the DISC assessment. It showed us who we were and truly how others saw us. So for most of us, finally, we had a diagnosis. We were then put into groups who were with people who were just like us. Some groups, as Allison told us, they sat back and watched. Some groups laughed and had a good old time. The other groups, pretty much, they sat there completely serious, but found a common ground. Then came the second session. They changed all our groups by putting us with people who were completely different from us. In those groups, we agreed, we disagreed, and we agreed to disagree agreeably. As we learned about each other, one true growth was that we learned more about ourselves. We worked with people who had different attitudes, perspectives, work ethics, but at the end of the assignment, the assignment had to be completed, and we appreciated what everyone brought to the table. The different people at the table represented our agencies and those who we supervise. We learned that you can't paint everyone with the same brush stroke, but when we're strong enough, we appreciated the beauty of the collage that we created. We learned to hear the whole band as opposed to our own instruments. You know, air is that thing that sustains us, but in order for us to take a breath, we first must be willing to give a breath. So sometimes with leadership, in order to be more, you got to step back and be willing to be less. We were introduced to journaling. Everyone loved that. And it wasn't until recently that, as Allison said, I had my what we would call the aha moment. And that came when I was speaking to the first sergeant, Doug. I was speaking about this, the speech and trying to see exactly what I needed to say. And, you know, I was talk to Bob, but Bob uses words I need a dictionary to better understand. So I couldn't go to Bob, so when I talked to Doug, Doug said, well, here's what I want you to do. Just speak from the heart. Then I stopped for a minute, I understood right then. When I started doing my journaling, and I was speaking intellectually, it was difficult, because I was always looking for that quintessential thing to say. But when I started speaking from my heart, the journaling became easy, and things about it began to flow. I realized that leadership is not about having shady personal agendas or harboring ill will toward others, waiting for them to make a mistake. True leadership is about having compassion, integrity, and sincerity to inspire others to do extraordinary things by ordinary means. To think outside the box, but even more than thinking outside the box, but to be willing to look at that box and be willing to think outside of it. Leadership is about knowing your MVP and being in touch with your star player, the person that you see in the mirror. You know, in my faith, too often people look at the word jihad as though it's something very, very bad. But those of us who truly understand the word jihad realize that jihad is about overcoming that thing that's in you, that's inside your heart that makes you feel bad. that ill will inside of you that stops you from speaking to somebody when you see them. The greatest jihad is overcoming that inside your own self, which is an asset to leadership. As Al Pacino said when we watched that clip of him in Any Given Sunday, he said there are inches around us, all the inches around us that we need to make a difference. The inches we need to inspire others are all around us. It's whenever you're sitting in your office and you're typing on your computer and you're doing something, somebody comes to your door to talk to you. When you actually stop to turn your chair around and look at them and say, how can I help you? It's when you got somebody who's off of work because they're sick and you call them, not necessarily because you just want to make sure they're coming back tomorrow so you won't have to do their job, but actually because you sincerely care about the fact that they're out sick. It's when we talk to somebody and say, hey, you did a good job. That doesn't take anything away from us by telling somebody else that you did a good job. Or when we take a moment to simply listen to someone's idea, whether you agree with it or not, to simply listen. I'm reminded of a time when I went to a funeral of Dr. Sears Lincoln. Dr. Lincoln was a very prolific writer about African-American history. And at his funeral, one of his friends said that Dr. Lincoln, who was a big, big man, he said they were driving, every time they crossed a bridge, Dr. Lincoln would cry. He said, hey, I hear the voices. I hear the voices. And he said he got a little scared because Sears was a big man. And he said he didn't know if he needed to call the police, if he needed to call an ambulance, or just find the nearest pink room with a straitjacket. But he knew he had to do something. So he pulled the car over. And he said, Sears, what are you talking about? And Sears told him, he said, look, many of my people, whenever they came over here, they died in the Middle Passage, in waters just like this. Whenever I pass those waters, I hear their voices saying, don't forget me. I hear those voices reaching out to say, remember me. So although our time in this class is coming to an end, I will always hear those voices. I hear the voices when I have Darren saying, bro, no matter what, don't let him move that cheese. When I have Bob saying, wow, somebody just got hijacked. When I got DeMar, whenever we're sitting there and things get kind of rough, DeMar just snaps them fingers and said, oh, let's get it done. Let's work it out. Super free. Those of you in the class, y'all understand. Or Cool Larry, who used to sit beside me every single morning with that lotion bottle. My elbows are still happy alive. Or Ed Brooks. Now, you've got to understand this. Ed is a quiet man. Those of you who know him know Ed is very, very quiet. And then there was a lady who came into the class named Miss Overton. And Miss Overton, every time she asked a question, she threw out candy, right? Ed couldn't stop answering questions. Clap his hands, he would answer every question. But then it just showed me that when it comes to leadership, you can't paint everybody with the same brush. You've got to think outside of the box when it comes to leadership. And when it comes to the millennials, CC and Billy Boyd, we truly understand. Hold on, I think Billy's texting me right now. It is our turn to return to our agencies, to remember to fight for those inches that are all around us, to seize every opportunity to inspire others. We've all experienced traits of leadership that we find less than appealing. Do not return to your agencies and replicate what you hate. Armed with the skills that they've given us in your toolbox, work diligently to leave an indelible footprint within your agencies, within society. And I'll leave you with this. There was a story that I once heard about 3 wise men who came into a town. And when those men came into the town was moving a certain way. Those men started getting the town to do all types of things. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, all over. Man comes into town. That man says, you know what, I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong, but I think I need to follow my heart and do what I think is right. So all of a sudden, people started listening to that man. So the 3 wise men said, we can't let this happen. So one of them said, well, let's call a meeting and call that wise man into town, because we need to do something to show people that he's not somebody you should follow. So one of them said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll call him down to the center, and I'll ask him if the bird I hold behind my back is alive or dead. If he said that the bird is alive, I'll quickly break the bird's neck and show him that the bird is dead. If he said the bird is dead, I'll let the bird fly away so everyone in the town will know this is not a man you should follow. They said, yeah, that's a good idea. So they called a big old meeting in the town. Man walks into town. Everybody was there. And they said, wise fool, will you please come to the middle? He comes down. And the man said, is the bird I hold in my hand alive or dead? He paused for a second, and he looked at everybody's faces. And he said, sir, the answer to that question is in your hands. So if you truly want to inspire others, the answer to that question is in your hands. If you're truly willing to fight for those inches that are all around us to make a difference, the choice is in your hands. If you choose to go back and forget everything that we've learned and we fought for in that classroom to replicate what you hate, that choice is still in your hands.